Ms Bath.
Thank you, Acting President. Acting President, as I rise to make a contribution on the Financial Management Legislation Amendment Bill 2025, I want to reflect on what an oxymoron that is coming from the Allen government. Financial management and the Allen government is certainly an oxymoron, and indeed it has stemmed from now amendments to the Financial Management Act of 1994. Now, for those of us who can remember back that far, and I know I certainly can, that came off the end of a dark period in Victoria's history called the Kane-Kerner government. And when we passed through that and out the other side, there was massive debt. There was massive debt across the state of an eye-watering proportion. And at that time, the then Liberal and National government came in and enacted this Financial Management Act 1994. And it also coupled in with the period of time where we had, in the federal parliament, we had the Keating and Hawke government that were also stripping away the fabric of good financial management in that scene. And so in many ways we're duplicating. There's a history is repeating itself in terms of this amendment, this bill. We've now got a Andrews cum Allen government, 11 years in, a tired government that has introduced 63 new or increased taxes, that the word financial and management, it should have a mismanagement in front of it for this bill. It is sincerely eye-watering and concerning the level of debt that this country and this state is in. And in terms of the forward projections, we've heard from members on our side, $194 billion in net debt in the forward estimates. It is just frightening for our children. The children born today have to wear that burden. And the Nationals and the Liberals are certainly deeply concerned about the erosion of financial accountability, erosion of transparency, and particularly in the light of this woeful mismanagement. And some of the areas of the bill, and just to wander into them for the sake of this debate, the erosion of oversight in terms of the removal of the governor's issued warrants. So Labor now no longer has to formally approach the governor and say, can we access further money? It erodes the layer of scrutiny around not only the governor but the Auditor-General. And the Auditor-General has certainly had things to say about this government. Fiercely independent, an assessment, an accountability tool that is highly valued. The Auditor-General has made an assessment last year in terms of the repeated criticisms from the Auditor-General in terms of the lack of transparency and poor financial accountability of this government. And let's note, Mr Andrews had been in for many years, but for all of the time that he was in this parliament, his understudy was doing her apprenticeship, and now she holds the reins as the trajectory goes over the cliff into the abyss of mismanagement. In terms of what did the Auditor-General talk about in that 2024 report, he commented that 61% of performance measures from the Department of Treasury and Finance could not be verified. So the performance measures out to the public, available, could not be verified. 76% of Department of Treasury and Finance's calculations had documentation issues. So what is being presented is not fair or accurate, and most departments fail to meet their reporting standards under the resource framework. We know, as we've heard, that debt is growing every day. The next part to this bill that is before us, this oxymoron of a financial management legislation bill, looks at exempting declared bodies. So this bill allows for the minister to exempt certain public bodies like the SRL, Suburban Rail Loop Authority, from financial reporting obligations. And it's not a topic that I deal with a lot because it's overwhelmingly the issues of metropolitan Melbourne. And I had the temerity, the Premier had the temerity one day of saying how much it will benefit regional Victorians because they'll be able to hop on that and go to uni. Now, let us look at the proportionality of infrastructure spend, and if we're looking at management of this state by the Allen government, let's look at that proportionality. Regional Victorians, rural and regional Victorians, make up 25% of the population. Quite a far considerable of the landmass, but 25% of the population. The PBO has verified that in the last few years, this government is spending somewhere around 11 to 13% of the infrastructure spend. So there's a disproportionate variation in this government's concept of what fairness is. It's all going into metropolitan Melbourne and it's all going into billions of dollars of overspend. Again, financial management not. If we look at the Metro Tunnel, the North East Link, they are billions. I haven't got a recent update, but it is billions and billions over and above the cost of the proposed budgets. And if we also let's look at the former Premier spoke about some of these big build issues, and indeed the suburban rail loop. And the former Premier said along the lines of, if you're building a kitchen, it costs what it costs. If you're building a kitchen, it costs. But families who build kitchens have budgets and they must keep within that budget. This government, and if not, pay the consequences themselves, extending their loan. This government is extending the loan into my grandchildren's children, and our prosperity and our wealth and our service delivery, not only in Metro Melbourne, but in the regions. It costs what it costs. And that acting president is where the current Premier got her stamping ground, got her, we'll say, training from. It costs what it costs. And this government is talking about fiscal management. It is hypocrisy in the extreme. We've seen that this bill has removed the independent oversight by scrapping those governor-issued warrants. We've seen that there's been key agencies exempt from financial reporting. We've seen silence transparency in elections in this bill. And we've seen a careless and negligent and irresponsible and immoral government. Let us talk. We heard before, they love talking about cuts. Let's look at some of the cuts that this government has made in relation to some of those core services that are very dear to my heart. We've got the emergency services tax, one of those new and increased taxes that we've seen. We've seen a cut to the CFA budget, and I congratulate my colleague.
Minister, on a point of order.
Misleading the House by referring to cuts that have not been made to the CFA. If she wants to refer to history and look at the coalition cuts to the CFA, perhaps it'll be accurate, but she's misleading the House. It's not an accurate statement.
Further to the point of order, Ms Bath.
Point of order that has no relation to this debate, and the Leader of the House was out of order.
I'm happy to make a ruling. I'm sure the Minister will be happy to correct the record during her contribution. I'll allow Ms Bath to continue.
Thank you, Acting President. The government in this bill is looking at, in Clause 7, is looking at language like departments should operate within their budget. Departments should operate within their budget, and we heard from the newly minted Commissioner for Police that he's being told by the government to operate within the budget. Although and otherwise, we see the fact that our Victorian police system is under so much strain, so much pressure, and it is bleeding out onto our streets and into our communities. What this government is doing, clearly I've touched the nerve of the Leader of the House, which is actually, I feel quite exercised by that. What this government fails to do is provide transparency about keeping within its budget, because we have the Shadow Minister for Emergency Services ask the question to the Minister for Emergency Services in the other House about give us the value, provide to this House, provide to the Victorian public about what are the budgets for the CFA, for FRV, for SES, for 000 on a number of occasions over the last few weeks, and the minister will not do it, will not provide it. I like the fact that the Leader of the Government is getting, and the Treasurer, while we're at it, is getting quite activated by my contribution. The other thing that I want to just relate to this financial quote-unquote oxymoron of a bill is the discussion around keeping within their budget. And I know Mr Davis related this, and I think it's important to put it on record. And I know the former Leader of the Nationals and former Minister in the previous government, Peter Walsh, spoke about the importance of keeping to a cap of a budget cap, a GSP budget cap of 6%. And Treasury were very nervous about that, very nervous about that when there was a Liberal and National government between 2020 and 2014. Minister, you get to have your say in a moment, and we'll all enjoy listening to your defence. But now we're up to, it's evolved. It's somehow blown out.
Through the
it's
chair,
evolved
please.
into a budget blowout of 25 to somewhere 28% of GSP. That is a frightening amount as well. And indeed, this government does not know the name of fiscal responsibility. The other thing that we see over this period of time is that there is this bucket of money. It's vastly disappearing, and yet there are people this government has shut down industry, has then, in some circumstances, actually said there is no money. Not it costs what it costs, but there is no money. So there's industries like the native timber industry, like the people who have been put out of work for doing a great job to provide the fibre for this state, for its prosperity, to be able to do that. But yet sometimes it doesn't cost what it costs. It only costs what you're going to give. Whether or not that is sufficient in recompensation and compensation for these good people. And these people deserve our thanks, and these people also deserve to be recognised that their mental health has been shredded over the last decade from this government. So in conclusion, Acting President, this government, I take to the point, and I haven't gone into the other areas where this government hasn't been able to keep to budget. The other thing that I will just relate is the misuse of the Treasurer's advance. Now, it's supposed to be for emergency, urgent situations. In PAYAC the other day, we had the Minister for Environment actually go in and speak in terms of bushfire mitigation and bushfire preparedness and FFMV, that work that needs to be done. We have a known quantity of forest. It is a known event and activity, and yet Minister Dimopoulos said, look, the budget in here is lumpy. The budget in this is lumpy. Well, I don't consider that to be good governance. I don't consider it to be good fiscal management, and I will not be supporting this bill.